Hello, Eric Swenson here. As a follow-up session on Pietism, and this one I might entitle "What is Pietism?" But first, I want to say that it's interesting to hear Lutheran professors and pastors who have a high regard for confessional Lutheranism, as I do, trash Pietists, which I do not. And when they talk about Henry Melchior Muhlenberg, the father of American Lutheranism, they allude at the very beginning to his pietism, and they say something like, well, he was a pietist, but he was not a something or other. And of course, now there are a lot of something or other pietists. We're going to, at some point, we'll talk about that. There's maybe 4, 6 main types of pietists, and now there were individuals, who were pretty far out there. But they're interesting people to study. But you don't study them because of you think that they are representative of that much. It is this person, and this is how their thinking went. But I find this in many historians that they like to say that, and you read any book about Luther, they'll say this. They say, well, now Luther was a mystic early in his development, but he was not a certain kind of mystic. He was this kind of mystic, and he wasn't much of a mystic really, and you know that because, and blah, blah, blah. And what they're really telling you is about themselves and not Luther. The problem we Lutherans have is that we must be right. We must be right, and we must show other people that we know more than they do, which is kind of hard to do because we're supposed to also have some humility, and we really shouldn't engage in hate speech, should we, fellas? Right? Okay. So anyway, now, there's this one professor whom I really like. I like his work, and I've met him a couple times, and I really like him as a person. And just to use him for example, he says that Muhlenberg had a pietistically flavored confessionalism. And to that I say, okay, John, whatever, that's as good, that's a good thing. But you would actually might be leading people astray because they may not realize that he was a pietist through and through. That he was educated at Halle, Germany, the home of August Hermann Francke, and that he was trained there and sent out from there. And if you look at the minutes of the very, very important 1748 Ministerium of Pennsylvania, they sent the report to Halle, and they referred to the professors at Halle as their fathers. Well, we'll get into that in this one session, where I'll talk about, isn't it funny how nobody talks about how that it was the American Lutheran Church was actually, when it finally got founded, it was the direct work of Halle. It's provable. It's verifiable. No one else will tell you this. I don't care about my reputation. So what? Okay. So anyway, and then what I have here written that I must read is I think that my other response to my friend John would be that, and so should all of us, all of us who value Lutheranism. We should be pietistically flavored confessionalists. All of us, clergy and lay. And actually, I think most of us are, though many or most don't know it at all. In fact, if you are part of any renewal or reform movement in the Lutheran Church, if you quote the Bible, if you work through a network, I mean, even my friends in the Society of the Holy Trinity, they would be scandalized and they would tell you that I was a fool. But I see then so much of what they do. They are churchly Lutheran pietists. All of this I know is true. I can publicly debate anybody, and yet people will still say to my face that pietism is the worst thing that there is, period. Well, most people I know who say that things like that to me, they don't know the first thing about pietism. So how do you know what pietism is? You have to do the work and you have to read the sources. You certainly can't rely on secondhand opinions that are passed around. And you can't rely on what Professor so-and-so said. You can't even rely on doing a survey of the secondary literature. You have to go to the sources. You have to go to the sources. And everybody can do this by reading Pia Desideria by Philip Jacob Spener. One of the great mysteries of the world is why it was never translated into English until the 1960s. Theodore Tappert, who did such a great job with the Book of Concord, he's the one who did it. And read his forward to that book, because it is a very good understanding of what pietism is. So order it online. You might be able to get a copy for $5. Pia Desideria by Philip Jacob Spener. Now, what is pietism? F. Ernst Stoffler, he taught church history at Temple in Philadelphia. In the preface to German Pietism during the 18th century, on Brill, 1973, as perhaps the best definition of the pietism of Philip Jacob Spener and his early followers. One that should be winsomely attractive to all Christians of any age. It speaks of a wholeness, a Christian wholeness for which to strive. The basic importance, these beliefs and practices that he wrote can be summarized as this. 1, the need for and the possibility of an authentic and vitally significant experience of God on the part of individual Christians. 2, the religious life as a life of love for God and man, which is marked by social sensitivity and ethical concern. 3, utter confidence with respect to the issues of both life and death, and the experientially verifiable authenticity of God's revelation in Jesus Christ as found in the biblical witness. 4, the church as the community of God's people, which must ever be renewed through the transformation of individuals, and which necessarily transcends all organizationally required boundaries. 5, the need for the implementation of the Reformation understanding of the priesthood of all believers through responsible lay participation in the varied concerns of the kingdom of God. And 6, a ministry which is sensitized, trained, and oriented to respond to the needs and problems of a given age. And finally, the continual adaptation of ecclesial structures, practices, and verbal definitions to the mission of the church. Now, Spener himself gave clear expression to the aims of his movement in Pia Desideria, in which he laid down 6 goals to be realized. 1, greater study of the Bible, but with the aim of personal devotion rather than academic competence. 2, a serious commitment to Martin Luther's belief in the priesthood of all Christian believers, so that the laity might really participate in the life of the church instead of merely conforming outwardly. 3, a realization that Christianity is a practical faith rather than an intellectual belief, and that this faith expresses itself in love. 4, Corresponding to this, a new style in apologetics and controversy that must aim not so much at intellectual conviction as at winning the allegiance of the whole person. 5. Following from the last 2 points, the reorganization of theological education in order to lay stress on standards of life and conduct rather than only on academic achievement. 6. The renewal and revitalization of preaching as an instrument for building up a genuine piety among the people. Now those 6 points are the third section of the book, Pia Desideria, and they're labeled there, 1 through 6 in the book. It's clear for you to follow, and it makes for some good reading. The next session will be a session just on Pia Desideria. Thank you.